Growing up, life was, in a lot of ways, typical, but in a lot of ways, it wasn't. For me, I struggled a lot as a kid with feeling like other people, feeling like I really knew who I was. I don't feel like I really fit in a lot. Growing up, I liked a lot of things, being like a tomboy. I played sports, and I had a lot of friends that were guys. I didn't have a lot of friends that were girls, and so going through school, kids picked on me a lot for that. When you don't fit in school, it can be a lot more difficult. From the time I was a small child, I was baptized as a baby in church, and I grew up there. I went there all through high school. When my friends were out partying, I actually really enjoyed being at church, and I was there until I was 18. And even though I was going to church, I still struggled with a lot. There was a lot of things that I was struggling with internally that I felt like I couldn't tell anybody, and I always felt like, because my faith wasn't strong enough, that's why I was struggling. That's why I was having problems that, I didn't think other people were having because nobody was talking about them at the time. I noticed that I had an attraction to, women. Like, some of my friends, like, they would have crushes on boys, but I didn't. And, that made me instantly think, like, something's wrong with me. I don't think I really fully understood God. I didn't fully understand my identity or how he saw me. I walked away feeling like, well, my faith isn't strong enough. I'm going to struggle with this forever. There's nothing that, God can't use me, so what's the point? Why try? And I spent a solid 12 years out of church, and I always told myself, I'm never doing organized religion again, because those people, they don't get me. And I started to get friends that were into the LGBT lifestyle. I had a friend that started transitioning, and she was going from female to male. And she said, it was really easy. She just went, met with a doctor, signed a piece of paper, and they gave her hormones. And so I thought, okay, well, that fits. And so I decided to do that. My first doctor appointment, she talked to me, and I said, I have felt this way since I was young. I felt like I was in the wrong body. And she had me sign this piece of paper called informed consent. And the next thing I know, I was being prescribed hormones. And 4 months after that, I was meeting with a surgeon to have a bilateral mastectomy. And so I did that, and then about a year, maybe not even a year after that, I was able to get a hysterectomy. And for that, my insurance paid for that. And so it was like doctors were affirming me, friends in my friend group were affirming me, even the insurance company was saying it was okay. And so the further I removed myself from God, the more quiet that voice inside got, and it became easier to take steps that I never thought I would take. I was crossing lines that I never thought that I would cross. I lived as a male for about 3 years. In some ways, that time in my life, parts of it were easier. People saw me as male. I had a beard and short hair, and I kind of fit the part. And but in a lot of ways, it was harder. I felt like I had this secret that I couldn't tell anybody. I felt like I was constantly lying. I felt like I lived in a state of fear, like somebody was going to find out, and it was going to change their perception of me. And I lived in a constant state of fear. And I remember after 3 years of living that way, I was down in Florida, and I was watching YouTube, and I got sucked into this rabbit trail of YouTube videos. And I remember coming across this video called 23 Minutes in Hell by Bill Weiss, and I watched it, and it scared me. It like woke something back up inside of me, and I knew from that moment on I couldn't continue living the way I was. So that night, I was so scared I didn't want to go to sleep, because I thought, oh, if I die, I don't want to go to hell. I was so scared. And but I knew that God was calling me back to live the way he created me. And so, but I struggled with it. I struggled with it for another 2 years after that, because I had made so many changes that were so drastic. I had surgery. I was taking hormones, I had facial hair. And for me, I didn't know what that was going to look like. Like, okay, God, I'll serve you, but how is this going to look? Like, how do I go back to who I was before? And so when I moved back home, I still was shaky on whether I wanted to go back to church or not. I still, I knew I wanted to serve God, but I didn't know if it was at church. And so I started listening to a local church online. It was Believers Church, and I really liked the messages. They were different from what I heard before. And I'll never forget, they did a panel called "Is It Okay To?" And it was about smoking, gambling, is it okay to be gay or attend a gay wedding? And what stood out to me was right in the beginning, Pastor Joe was like, I love when you guys do the amens, but we're not going to, I'm going to ask you not to do that today because they can be pointed and we want everybody to feel comfortable. And that just stood out to me. Like, I hadn't heard a pastor say that before. It was like he really cared about the people that he was connecting with. Throughout that season, those first couple years that I was at Believers, I was really struggling, and I was trying to bargain with God, like, okay, I'll serve you, I'll do whatever you want, but can I just live like this? I don't know, because I think it's natural to think like, well, what am I going to look like? This is crazy. What's going to happen? And so, I spent a while, trying to bargain with God, and it was like this constant turmoil, because it was like I knew that I couldn't stay like that, but I was too scared to, fully surrender to God. I had so much fear. And I came to a point where I was like, okay, I either have to surrender or I have to walk away, because I can't live like this anymore. And I remember just being in my bedroom one night, just crying out to God, tears running down my face, just like looking up to the ceiling and saying, okay, God, I surrender. I'll do it your way. I'm scared, but I know you're going to be with me. And, I surrender. And in that moment, it was like I felt instant peace. Nothing was fixed or solved, but I felt everything that I had felt before, the fear, the worry, the anxiety. It was completely replaced in an instant with peace. I really felt that the Lord had put it on my heart to be in ministry. I knew in some way that I was going to be involved in ministry. And so I remember the first time I met with Joe Jr., he knew where I was at, and he knew that I had a heart for ministry. And I remember he just put everything out there. He said, I know you have a heart for ministry. I know you want to be in ministry, and this is what you're going to need to do to walk this out. And I remember thinking, I don't think I agreed 100% with him at the time, but I remember, I knew he was right. But I just, again, I had all that fear, and I didn't know how I was going to walk it out. And then I remember meeting with Pastor Gina, and she connected me with a group of young women at the church, and we met at Panera, and it was just an awesome time to get to know each other better. And those were the people that became my support group when there were moments where I was struggling, when I needed people to talk to, when I felt like there was nobody else that I could talk to. That core group of people, they were there for me. I met my husband, and I never thought that I would find somebody who would love me for me. I never thought that I would get married. Now I have all the things that I just never thought I'd have. I found somebody who loves me and sees me for me. And, I thought for a long time, I thought I was too far gone and too broken, that I would never find somebody who would love me for me. But the amazing thing about God is that nobody's ever too far gone. We're never too far broken to be used by God. I can look back throughout my life, different periods of time where he always had my back. He never left. Even though I walked away, he didn't walk away. And I love that, he'll leave the 99 to find the one. And, the Holy Spirit touched my heart when I wasn't even at church. You know, God could find you and meet you wherever you are. You don't have to be in the four walls of a church. He will find you and meet you where you are, as long as your heart's open.